Hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Schwa Mill, where every single Saturday at this time, we help you craft your accent in American English pronunciation. My name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath, which is one of the four key ingredients to achieving a natural sound. And we're going to be listening to files that you send us so that way we can give you some guidance in order to achieve a more natural sound in your speech. And of course, if you have questions about American English, life, anything that you think we can help you with, be sure to let us know. You can post those in the chat. But I do want to kind of walk you through the process for sending in your pronunciation files. In fact, it's the same process every single week. So in case you're watching us for the first time or listening to us for the first time, um, definitely take a note of everything I'm about to show you. But if you look at the video description, you're going to see a link to a Google document that looks like this. Okay, once you're in this Google Documents, you're going to see up at the top, zoom in here, make it a little easier to see. Okay, you're going to see some directions at top. They're going to direct you to a website called vocaroo.com. When you go to vocaroo.com, it's going to look a little something like this. Okay. And the only difference you may see is a big fat red record button. You're going to press that record button and then say what you want to say. Then it's going to give you an option to save. When you click save, you're going to get this link. You take the link, you post it in our Google Doc, and that's it. Your job is done. I will handle the rest. Although it would be nice if you gave us your name and you also gave us the script of things that you're going to say, so that way we can make sure we're understanding you correctly. I mean, let's be honest, guys, we're talking thousands of miles apart from each other through mysterious ways and airwaves and things like that. So there's lots of different opportunities for issues to come up. So I do encourage you to include the text in addition to just technical things like we're dealing with microphones, we're dealing with headphones, all kinds of things that can go wrong. So having the text is very, very helpful. This document is the same document we use every single week. So maybe this week you're feeling a little shy, or maybe you're catching us on the replay, but maybe you want to send us file for next Saturday. We'll save this document. I usually clear it out on Thursday or Friday. So that way we can see your file. Okay. I'm trying to think about some other things going on housekeeping wise. If you guys have some news, be sure to let me know. Hello to Shok. Hello to Emmanuel. Good to see you guys. Hello also to Edward. Edward's comment came in a while ago. We are starting a little bit late today. My apologies for that. Had some tech issues come up, unfortunately. Some other news really quick. It's not really news, but some good things to know. If it lets me. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about a lot today include topics like placement, breath, pitch, and also trying to weaken vowel sounds and things like that. So I just want to make you aware, if you're interested in these topics of placement, breath, pitch, and reducing vowels, I encourage you to go to fluentamerican.com because we have a free video course. So you just go fluentamerican.com and you just go down to where it says courses, and you're going to see this free video course, which is going to highlight for you all of our key concepts. This will make all of the feedback we give today much easier to understand. So if I say something today and you're like, I just don't get what Jeff is talking about, that's okay. That's what this course is here for, because it's going to completely change your approach to pronunciation if these are new topics for you. All right, other things that come to mind before we dig into some audio files? I can't think of anything, but if you guys think of something, be sure to let me know. Otherwise, we're going to begin getting into all the files that you sent us. Oh, let me add myself there, right? Again, it's not little, it's more little.
The G host was class.
Are you feeling that here, or here? All right, let's get into some files and things. I'm going to share my screen and share my sound. All right. So again, this is our Google document. There is still time to send us a file. Okay, so there is still time. You can find the link to do it in the video description. But right now it's currently 4 files, so we should be able to knock these out fairly quickly. Uh, we got a 19-second
I
file,
like to get a work.
4-second file,
I'll say
10-second file,
uh,
and 25-second file. Okay, so let's try to maybe knock out some of the longer ones first. Starting with this one here.
when I was just as far as I could walk from here today, there was an hour still. When leaning with my head against a flower, I heard you talk.
Okay. It wasn't the moment I expected this to end on. Okay. Give it up for Shok for gracing us with her voice once more. We appreciate you, Shok. Let's listen again and then give some thoughts.
When I was just as far as I could walk from here today, there was an hour still. When leaning with my head against a flower, I heard you talk.
Okay. In general, again, I am not a singer, so I can't give you a whole lot of feedback in that regard, but some little pronunciation things that maybe came up. Overall, I thought this sounded pretty good.
When I was just as far as I could,
I want to go back to that far as.
as far as I
This is like as far as. I feel like I'm kind of hearing like far as versus far as. So just trying to get that kind of that sharpness on that ah sound. So it's more as far as instead of as far as. Let's see if you can catch that.
and I was just as far as I could.
Yeah, far as versus far as. 'Cause that's probably the very minor thing just for that vowel.
Could walk from here today.
I like how you said that A sound on today. Thought that was very clear. Tends to be a tricky diphthong. So again, it's not A, it's just A.
There was an hour still.
So I'm not hearing that all. That is one thing I will say.
Hour.
Okay, it almost sounds like our instead of our all still. Because just kind of watching out for that little sequence there. Our all still. There was an hour all still. Hour all still.
Hour still.
Because it almost sounds like all world versus our all still. Just a minor note there.
Still. When leaning with my head against a flower, I heard you talk.
Yeah, honestly, those are going to be my major comments there because everything else is kind of more singing related. And again, that's not my forte. You don't not want me giving you singing advice. Some little things for that last sequence. I liked how you said flower, like that arson.
When leaning with my head against a flower.
Mm-hmm. Lean with my head against a flower. I like your vowels. I like your movements with pitch. You know, you're hitting some high pitches, you're hitting some low pitches, and those are all going to be very fundamental to getting a natural sound in American English. Okay, if you guys aren't familiar with pitch, just something that I really encourage you to practice is just doing like a little pitch scale, doing things like if we take the word this, can you take the word this like down 5 times? Just kind of doing like this, this. That if you find that easy, that's great. A lot of my students do not find that easy. Find it actually very difficult to do. This. And then see if you can take that up again. This. And then see if you can take it 5 higher. This. And then 5 down. This. And then maybe can you do all of that? So like this. Practicing your pitches, practicing your scales is fundamental for American English. We need to use that full range because a lot of people who learned English and are trying to speak American English the range is too limited. You might have this is your high, this is your mid, this is your low, this is your lower. And that's just not enough to achieve the most natural sound, in honesty, in American English in most cases. Going back to our file here, you can hear Shoke using those pitches in this last part.
When leaning with my head against the flower.
You can hear like head against a flower. It's like things like that. Just basically just a skill. But yeah, those are kind of my main notes for Shoke. Great way to start us off. Shoke, if you have any questions about anything I said there, let me know. But yeah, watch out for as far as part. There was an hour all still. Watch out for that sequence. Those are kind of the main things that stood out for me there. So kudos to Shoke again for starting us off very nice and smoothly. I will also make a note if you're interested in pitch, because pitch is one of the 4 key ingredients to a natural American English sound, in addition to placement, in addition to breath, and in addition to trying to weaken your consonant sounds and strengthen your vowels. We actually have a course. Again, if you go to fluentamerican.com, we have a course dedicated to pitch. If you just scroll down to courses, this pitch apprenticeship, what basically it does is it's going to teach you 9 of the most common pitch patterns in American English. So that way you can start hearing them in other people's speech and then start using it yourself. Okay, so if you're interested in pitch, you're having a hard time with those scales, you want some more exercises to practice, strongly encourage you to check out that pitch apprenticeship course because that's entirely what it's designed around. Thanks again to Shoke for sending that. What else we got? This is the one we just heard, right? I exited out. Yes. Okay. Nothing wants to close today. Okay, let's take a listen to our second longest file here. And there is still time, by the way, to send us your pronunciation files too. Just look in the video description for how to send those.
Don't get me wrong, I'm actually one of them folks that don't mind a little bit of heat, provided it's like 30 degrees or so. But once you get into that 40-degree territory, then yeah, things are gonna get a bit uncomfortable, even for me.
Okay. Thanks to Emmanuel for sending us a file. Okay. Jonathan Clickbaits. Hi from McDonald's. Hi from my house. Thanks for checking this out. Enjoy your nuggets or your apple pie or whatever it is you're eating or not eating. Thanks for stopping by. Let's take a listen to this one again.
Don't get me wrong, I'm actually one of them folks that don't mind a little bit of heat, provided it's like 30 degrees or so. But once you get into that 40-degree territory, then yeah, things are gonna get a bit uncomfortable, even for me.
Okay. We'll play it back from the beginning and kind of highlight some things standing out.
Don't get me wrong, I'm actually one.
I like the pitch on wrong.
Don't get me wrong,
Wrong. That sort of movement with the intonation. Wrong. Wrong. That sort of movement, very, very common in American English. American English is not usually just like wrong or wrong. There's usually a lot of nuance, a little bit of wavering going on. So I would encourage you to kind of notice that in people's speech, but I like how you did that there.
don't get me wrong, I'm actually one of them folks that.
One of them folks. That's fine. I mean, you will hear people talk like that. Another way you could say is like one of those folks if you're going for more descriptive grammar.
Them folks that don't mind. One of them folks that actually one of them folks that.
One of them folks that. One of them folks that. To me, it sounds a little flat. I don't know. I believe this is manuals. I don't know if you're shadowing. If you are shadowing, I would listen to that part to make sure that you're hitting all the pitches that they are, because that sounds kind of flat to me.
One of them folks that.
Da 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 da. That kind of sounds like the parent. Da 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 da. One of them folks that. I'm actually one of them folks that. That's personally, if I were trying to add a little bit more movement there, that's how I would do it. I'm actually one of them folks that that don't mind, like something like that.
One of them folks that don't mind a little bit of.
I'm also wondering if mine went a little higher than they did.
that don't mind a little
It said don't mind, more don't mind. That don't mind a little bit of heat. I would look at that part. Maybe you're doing it right. I don't know. If you are shadowing, I would definitely go back to compare. So I would look at, are you hitting all those low pitches that they're doing? Probably for that previous part. I'm actually one of them folks. And then I want you to look at that don't mind. Ah, man says they're not shadowing. Okay, cool. That don't mind. I don't think you need to go as high on mind. I'm actually one of those folks that don't mind.
that don't mind a little bit of heat.
Okay. Um, don't mind a little bit of heat. That don't mind a little bit. I'm actually one of them folks that don't mind a little bit of heat.
Don't mind a little bit of heat.
Little bit of. We're getting a little closed off. So we have a lot of short I sounds. Your short I sound is like an eh. One big trick to pronouncing the short I is to have the sides of your tongue touching your top teeth. So again, if you're trying to get that sound right, it's almost like you're biting inside your tongue, like It's not or like It's like That's the sound we're really going for. So like little bit, little bit, little bit. Don't mind a little bit of heat. That don't mind a little bit of heat. Don't mind a little bit of heat. I'm going back to the file. One of the folks that don't mind a little bit of heat.
A little bit of heat. Mind a little bit of heat.
A little bit of. It feels like our placement's really high again on those dark L's. Little bit of. It's a little bit of. Little bit of.
Mind a little bit of heat.
Le versus le. Hear that difference there? So I think it's some dark L things and some placement things on le. Can you do like le, little, little? Maybe even try to link it more. Little. And again, that's what's the tip of my tongue down against my bottom front tooth. And also trying to keep the placement. Everything's projecting from my throat. It's a low placement with lots of breath coming through. So again, some dark L things. Besides that, moving on.
Provided it's like 30 degrees or so.
Provided it's like so. Okay, so the word like is a very common filler word. So I think it's a natural word choice here.
Like 30 degrees or so.
When we use a lot of these filler words like or
A bit of heat. Provided it's like
again, we're getting kind of a little stuck with the pitches because a lot of times with these filler words like and that's not to say that what you're doing is wrong, but I think a very frequent tendency that we can try using here would be using a lower pitch on like, provided it's like 30 degrees, like provided it's like 30 degrees. Do you hear the difference between provided it's like 30, provided it's like 30? Do you hear that difference there? Trying to go lower in pitch on like, a little weaker on like.
provided it's like 30 degrees or so.
30 degrees or so. 30 degrees or so. We hear degrees.
But we get into 30 degrees or so. Provided it's like 30 degrees or so.
So is an opportunity to go lower in pitch if you wanted. It says so, more so. 30 degrees or so. Provided it's like 30 degrees or so. So notice my so it's just a little lower than yours. Provided it's like 30 degrees or so.
Provided it's like 30 degrees or so.
It said or so, more or so, or so. So again, just a little lower pitch on so is a possibility. I do think your placement goes a little high on degrees, but you may hear some native speakers doing that too. It's like it said degrees, more grays. Again, I'm just getting a little more air through.
Provided it's like 30 degrees or so.
30 degrees versus 30 degrees or so. So mine's just lower placement, more air coming through, using my diaphragm more when I'm saying that.
But once you get into that 40-degree territory, but once you get into that, but once you get into that,
But once you get into that,
but once you get into that, but once you get into that,
get into that. Like it feels like when we're doing get placement again, it's kind of shooting high. Once you get into that,
but once you get into that, but once you get into that,
versus, but once you get into that, but once you get into that, so say get more get, like in best or head or rest. Once you get into that,
but once you get into that, but once you get into that,
once you get into that, a lot of times into that also gets reduced. You don't have to do this. That would be a good phrase to put into English to see how people say into that. Because I personally said once you get into that, once you get into that, into that. Once you get into that 40-degree territory,
But once you get into that 40-degree territory,
40-degree territory. Once you get 40. Okay, so you're contrasting the 30 degrees versus the 40 degrees. So probably it's like 30 degrees or so. But once you get into that 40-degree territory, okay, so stressing 40. Okay, that can work.
but once you get into that 40-degree, but once you get into that 40-degree,
Okay, so you have two thought groups, right? You have the once you, but once you get into that, so that's you have one thought group there. But once you get into that, and then you have another thought group. And again, when you switch thought groups from one thought group to the next, usually what happens in American English is the pitch register changes. You either take things higher, you take things lower.
but once you get into that 40-degree territory,
This is sound a little similar to the previous thought group to me.
but once you get into that 40-degree,
Like once you get into that four versus once you get into that 40 degree, maybe even going lower would have helped add more contrast there. But once you get into that 40-degree territory, once you get into that 40-degree territory,
but once you get into that 40-degree territory,
or once you get into that 40-degree territory, so if we're going to go higher, then I would take it higher. If we're going to go lower, though, I would take it lower. Because right now it's not a little similar.
but once you get into that 40-degree territory,
And I would also, if we're stressing 40, that's cool. I would take degree and territory lower in pitch. 40-degree territory, 40-degree territory. Once you get into that 40-degree territory, so especially lower pitch on the territory.
but once you get into that 40-degree territory, then yeah, things are gonna get a bit
I liked your reduction on things are going to get.
but once you get into that 40-degree territory, then yeah, things are gonna get things are gonna get
Things are going to get. Things are going to get. You could even go lower in pitch on get if you wanted, but I think in general sounds good.
then yeah, things are gonna get
You could add more contrast there because we're a little similar. Things are going to get versus things are going to get. Things are going to get. Just a little more movement.
a bit uncomfortable, even for me.
A bit,
Don't get
un-
me wrong. Then yeah, a bit uncomfortable.
a bit uncomfortable. A bit uncomfortable. I would go weaker on the bull at the end.
I get a bit uncomfortable.
A bit uncomfortable versus a bit uncomfortable. A bit uncomfortable. So I would go heavier on comf and then weaker on everything else. A bit uncomfortable.
I get a bit uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable because we get a little stuck. Comfortable versus comfortable. Bit uncomfortable. A bit uncomfortable. Just again adding a little more pitches there.
I get a bit uncomfortable, even for me.
Even for me, like that would be that me. That's another great opportunity to add the kind of that quiver, that waver to your intonation. Me. Even for me. Even for me. Bit uncomfortable. Even for me.
I get a bit uncomfortable, even for me.
Yeah, so I'll just add a little waver there. Okay. I'm just going to read this really quick. Keep in mind some of the things that we mentioned. We mentioned a lot. But a lot of this has to do with some placement things, just trying to lower placement a little bit, and some pitch things, just to add more contrast. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm actually one of those folks that don't mind a little bit. He provides like 30 degrees or so. But once you get into that 40-degree territory, then yeah, things are going to get a bit uncomfortable, even for me. Just one option there. Thank you to Emmanuel for sending us the files. We are putting in the work. I appreciate you immensely. Okay. Some quick reminders. Maybe you're just joining us for the first time. Hi. So my name is Jeff. We are taking a look at pronunciation files that you guys send us to give you suggestions for ways that you can make what you say sound even more natural in American English. Maybe you're living in the US or whatever your situation is. This is kind of something to keep in mind. We're taking a look at pronunciation files that people have sent to us. Right now, I'm looking and see that we have two more. Although Hagasha is sending us a file, which is exciting. And by the way, if you're already getting value from things that we're doing, you're learning things about American English, maybe some considerations that you haven't thought of, or maybe things that you have thought of, but you just haven't applied, or maybe you're still trying to apply to your speech. One way that you can help me out to let me know that you're enjoying and learning is doing this.
Like what you're hearing? Let us know by liking and subscribing.
All right. Emmanuel says lots of great info. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for sending the file. We appreciate you. All right, we're going to be moving on to our next files then. Give a moment to share my screen once more. All right. Give that a second to load. Let's see what ones we have. A 4-second file, 10-second file. I'm going to opt for the 10. See what we got here.
I was telling one of my kids the other day, social media can be so bad for your development. I think he got my point, but he's still somehow addicted to it.
Okay. Got some parent issues. Parents, kids, social media. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's hear this again.
I was telling one of my kids the other day, social media can be so bad for your development. I think he got my point, but he's still somehow addicted to it.
Okay. Let's kind of just go sentence by sentence. Not a whole lot of sentences here. Sure,
I was
first
telling one of my kids the other day.
one of the big things I think is pacing. I just want to listen to this whole thing again.
I was telling one of my kids the other day, social media can be so bad for your development. I think he got my point, but he's still somehow addicted to it.
Okay. So we mentioned before that one of the keys to sounding natural in American English is increasing the amount of contrast in your speech. One of the main ways we talk about doing this is through pitch. So if you have one thought group, like I was telling one of my kids, then next thought group the other day, I was telling one of my kids the other day, so that would add more pitch variation, right? I was telling one of my kids the other day, so that has like 3 different levels to it. I was telling one of my kids the other day, it's like something like that would add more contrast. But contrast is not just about pitch. There's other ways you can incorporate more contrast into your speech. One of the ways to do that is also maybe, for instance, through speed. I was telling one of my kids the other day, it's like, notice that I went slower. Like I was telling one of my kids the other day, it's like it's not just about pitch. It can also be about speed. It can also be about volume. I was telling one of my kids the other day. I was telling one of my kids the other day. Do you hear how much later I'm going on the other day part? I was telling one of my kids the other day. It's like, again, we're going a lot lighter on the other day part. So, it's pitch, it's speed, it's volume. There's so many different ways you can add contrast to your speech. And one of the things that I think is happening in this file here is that we're kind of just being consistent in really kind of just using the same speed throughout this. There's things we can do with pitch as well, but let's maybe, for the sake of just this file here, let's kind of just play around with some speed things.
I was telling one of my kids the other day, social media can be so bad for you.
Okay, let's just do that first sentence again.
I was telling one of my kids the other day.
I was telling one of my kids the other day. So again, notice I went slower on that first part. I was telling one of my kids the other day. Then the next sentence.
Social media can be so bad for your development.
Social media could be so bad for your development. Social media could be so bad for your development. Do you hear that? So slowing things down on the so bad.
Social media can be so bad for your development.
Social media could be so bad for your development.
I think he got my point.
I think he got my point. I think he got my point.
But he's still. He got my. I think he got my point, but he's still somehow addicted to it.
But he's still somehow addicted to it. Okay, so notice, let's kind of do the whole thing. I'll let you play. I'll play this whole file, and I'll show you if we play around with speed a little bit, some other options.
I was telling one of my kids the other day, social media can be so bad for your development. I think he got my point, but he's still somehow addicted to it.
I was telling one of my kids the other day, social media can be so bad for your development. I think he got my point, but he's still somehow addicted to it. Okay, so again, just kind of playing with speed. I also did some pitch things there that you can experiment with. Taking some things higher, taking some things a little lower, just to add more contrast. Other things you can do too. Um, Speaking of pitch, one technique I was listening. I mentioned this in our Mission English group, which we'll talk about in a moment. Um, I was watching this. He's kind of like a master negotiator. He's this guy that like he used to work in a lot of like hostage situations. Trying to talk about trying to stop people from like jumping off of buildings and things like that. And so he's just really good at just controlling his voice and things like that. And one of the things he was talking about was, for instance, if you just want to make something sound more authoritative, and you can do this exercise with me. One of the things you can do is, so like for instance, right now I'm looking eye level at the camera, right? But what happens if I just take my head and look down? So do this with me. We're just going to say this sentence. Let's just use the sentence. I'm going to say this sentence. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to say this sentence. And right now, I'm looking eye level at the camera, and my head is kind of just neutral, just looking forward, um, not looking up, not looking down, just kind of forward. I'm going to say this sentence. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my head. I'm going to look down. I'm going to say this sentence. Just kind of do that around more. I'm going to say this sentence. 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 I'm not doing anything, mouth position wise. I'm not even focused on placement. The only thing I'm doing is I'm taking my head and right now I'm looking up and right now I'm looking down, and you can immediately hear the difference in your voice. This is something that you can also do for yourself. Just experiment. Um, that's something that can also kind of help lower placement to a degree. It's also something that, for instance, maybe you need to say something in a way that sounds more authoritative. Well, that's one way you can do it. Just look down. Or if you want to make something that sounds lighter, just look up. Things like that. So just some ways you can kind of continue playing around with your voice. Um, I'm gonna bring up that file one more time, and we'll be able to kind of just look at other placement vowel things like that. Emmanuel makes a quick note. We should play around with speed more next week in Mission English. I'd be happy to. Completely changes things. Feeling Emo. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Feeling Emo is also asking a very important question. Is this the right channel? Is this the YouTuber that the dude from McDonald's was talking about? What channel was the dude? Was he talking about a channel? Jonathan, were you talking about a channel? Let me know. And if that is right, then let me know. But yeah. Thanks for joining us. Feeling Emo, if you have some questions about American English pronunciation, sure let us know too. Also, I don't recognize you. It'd be great to know how you stumbled upon us. Going back to Sycamore's file, what else can we say? Some quick things about placement, breath, and all the like.
I was telling one of my kids the other day.
Placement sounds really high. I was telling one of my kids the other day. Do you hear that difference? That's just a placement thing. I was telling one of my kids the other day. It's just a placement thing.
I was telling one of my kids the other day.
I was telling. Play around that. Just like see if you can take that down 5 times. I was telling. Just kind of play around the movements there.
Social media can be so bad for your development.
Social media can be so bad for your development. Do you hear that difference? Another big difference there is diaphragm and breath. So trying to expand, trying to really feel your diaphragm slowly contracting as you're saying things to get more air through. Because right now it really sounds like your lungs are doing all the work. And I want you to try to get your diaphragm more involved. One way you can kind of feel your diaphragm, for instance, if you take a big breath in and then just release it. Okay. And that's something that you can do to start to feel your diaphragm. Just a note from Feeling Email. He said something about Fluent American, something about live stream. I looked it up and directed me here. Yep, this is the Fluent American live stream. This is our show called the Schwa Mill, where we look at people's pronunciation files and give some suggestions and feedback for people's pronunciation. Talking about strategies for sounding more natural, even more natural in American English. Accent expansion. Another thing you can do to try to feel your diaphragm is take a big breath in and then imagine there's like 20 kids running around going crazy around you and you need them to be quiet. So what's the sound that you make in American English? You typically make a sound like shh. And as you do that, try to feel your stomach contracting, moving inward. It's like shh. So as you do that, you can feel your diaphragm, your stomach kind of contracting, tensing up a little bit. You want to, in general, when you're speaking American English, try to feel a little bit of that tension when you're talking. If you don't, that can be a sign that you're using the lungs and not your diaphragm to speak. So you want to try to get your diaphragm a little bit more involved. For instance, for this part of your dialogue here,
Can be so bad for your development.
can be so bad, can be so bad. And that's really using your lungs a lot. Can be so bad, can be so bad. That time I'm feeling my diaphragm a lot more. Can be so bad. That's my lungs. Can be so bad. That's my diaphragm. So that's a big thing there.
I think he got
Even that sound,
um
um, versus Do you hear that difference there? It's again trying to feel my diaphragm more, trying to get more air out because right now your placement's up here. You're like just try to take that down 5 times. Um, um, um. Do you hear that difference from that first one to that last one? It's like I'm just trying to use a lower placement, even on that sound, especially because that's a reduced part of your sentence, so it's going to be weaker.
I think he got my point.
I think he got my point. I think he got my point. I think he got my point. You know, another thing, again, just try looking at the ground and saying, I think he got my point. I think he got my point. I think he got my point. Do you hear now I'm looking up? I think he got my point. You hear me now I'm looking up. You know, these are all things that impact the quality of your sound.
But he's still somehow addicted to it.
He's still, like, again, the he's still part, really high placement.
I think he got my point, but he's still some.
He's still, but he's still, you know, so things like that. So trying to get that placement a little lower, a little more breath through the diaphragm, do some breathing exercises and things like that. We have those things on the channel. And Jonathan makes a note that that's what they hear as well, which is great. Okay. All right. So those are just some quick things there. Thank you to Sycamore for sending us the file. We greatly appreciate you. Okay. So, guys, if you're watching this, you know, we're looking at people's pronunciation files. We're giving some suggestions for ways and techniques for sounding a little bit more natural in American English in North America. But you may be like, hey, like, okay, so you look at my file for like 10 minutes on a Saturday. I mean, that's cool, but maybe is that actually enough for making noticeable progress in pronunciation? I mean, it gives you some ideas, the things to focus on. But if you're serious about trying to sound more natural in American English, it's probably not enough. So that's why I've created a program called Mission English. Mission English meets at all these times during the week, Monday through Friday. We meet twice a day for a half hour. It's a small group setting. So it's you, it's me, and usually it's like 1 to 4 max other students. Honestly, it's less than that. Usually like 1 to 2 students, but max of 4 on screen. And we just do pronunciation exercises. It's kind of like today, like we listen to each other and I give suggestions. We listen to native speakers and we try to copy what they're doing. We listen to different vowel exercises. We do breath exercises. We do pitch exercises. We do placement exercises, all these 4 major components. Because the reality is, if you're serious about studying pronunciation, once a week is not enough. I'll be honest. Once a week, you know, our live stream is 1 to 2 hours a week. Cool. You know how many hours there are in a week? It's about 168 hours in a week. And if you're just studying pronunciation for 1 hour a week, or just studying a language for 1 hour a week, okay, that's 1 hour out of 168. Okay. You have to decide for yourself if that's enough. If you feel like that's not enough, that's what our Mission English program is for. Some of the great things about the Mission English program, too, are that every single class is saved because it's in a Facebook group. So you can see all the classes. We recently passed our 300th class. We're on our way to 365 soon. That means that if you sign up for Mission English today, you get access to 365 classes automatically, in addition to all the future ones. And you can come to as many of these as you want. We do a maximum of about 40 a month. We do a minimum of 30. And then we also do 5 writing sessions as well on Saturday and Sunday. Okay. So, for instance, I used to be an IELTS examiner for the writing test and the speaking test. So, if you want to practice like some essays, maybe you want to prepare some business emails, maybe you want to prepare some social media stuff, whatever you need writing for, maybe you want to start your own blog or something, you can bring that to our writing classes. We do 5 of those a month, minimum, if not more. So, we would love to work with you more. All of those things will be present, basically, in our Mission English group. And the very best part is you get all of those classes. So you get at least 30 classes a month. You get the writing sessions. That's another 5 minimum a month for the price of a single class. So it's $30 right now to get that. And I'll be honest with you, we're covering topics that no one else is covering. No one else talks about placement, breath, pitch, and weakening your consonant sounds, strengthening your vowel sounds as much as we do. And these are the things that are going to have the biggest impact on your pronunciation. So it'd be great to see you. What you can do is you can go to fluentamerican.com, sign up for that. We'd love to have you. We also have some people watching the stream right now who are members. They can answer any questions you guys have about anything. A question from Edward. Will this be the time this chat will be streamed from now on? Like this live stream? No. We just had some technical stuff come up. Typically we meet at 1:30 p.m. New York time. Today we started about an hour later than that. And that was an unusual situation. My apologies for that. Things happen, guys. Trying to go live, things happen. I don't know what else to say. But again, if you're interested in Mission English, this is the one we looked at, yeah. Again, you can find out how to join if you go to fluentamerican.com and you look up top. You have the whole tab for Mission English there. All right, last original file. If you want to send us a pronunciation file, there is still time. Okay, if you go to video description, you see the link. I'll post it in the chat as well. And again, in case you're watching this for the first time or you're catching this late, we use this link every single live stream. So we usually refresh it on Thursdays or Fridays. That way you can send us audio and watch us on the replay to give you feedback if you can't attend live. Okay, you don't have to be here when we're reviewing your file. Okay. Quick note to Hagashot. I don't see a link. I see a text, but I don't see the link. So make sure if you're watching, please make sure you're giving us the Vokaru link. Otherwise, unfortunately, we won't be able to hear you this time. But in the meantime, our last file from our original group, Marcos saying they like to get a workout in during their lunch break. Oh man, they're brave. Because if I worked out during lunch, I'd be so tired going back to work, especially after lunch. I'm tired from the workout, and then I'm tired from eating because the itis comes in. Let's take a listen to Marcus's file. You guys cannot hear that. Before you guys yell at me, I already know the boos are coming. The boos are coming. They're like, Jeff, you have to share your audio. I know. I made a mistake. I make mistakes, guys. But first to tell you that. All right, let's try this again. Should be able to hear the audio this time.
I like to get a workout in during my lunch break.
I really like how you said during my lunch break. I thought it sounded really good. First half of this was a little flat. I'll be honest.
I like to get a workout in during my lunch break.
I like to get it feels like you're hitting a piano key, the same key over and over. Da, 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 da.
I like to get a workout in during my lunch break.
We start shifting once we get to the get. You do go down on the but the I like to get. I'd like more variation in that.
I like to get a work.
I like to get. I like to get. Do you hear how the difference is? I like to get a workout in. I like to get a workout in. It's just doing that movement down. I like to get a workout in. I like to get a workout in. Just adding that pitch movement is just going to make this sound so much more dynamic, and from a listener's perspective, also easier to understand.
I like to get a workout in during my lunch break.
During my lunch break. That was great. We have some movement there. During my lunch break.
During my lunch break.
During my lunch break. During my lunch break. So you have stress on lunch, and then break, lunch break, stress lunch. Break is not stress. This is a compound noun. A lunch break is a specific thing. So a lunch break has 2 words, but it's one thing. 2 words, one thing. So when that happens, we're going to stress lunch. Lunch break. During my lunch break. During my lunch break. Edward asking the important questions here. Edward asks, is a workout grammatically correct? Yep. Need to get a workout. Like I have to get a workout in. I did my workout. Workout has now become a noun. That is very possible, very common.
I like to get a workout in during my lunch break.
Yeah, I want to hear workout really quick.
I like to get a workout in.
Work. I do think your placement's a little high on work, especially. So I would just try to say work. Do like work, 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 work. Make sure that your vowel stays the same. Because if you're like do you hear how the placement shifts that time? Okay, so we don't want to have the shift. We want it to sound the same each time. Get a workout, workout. Like to get a workout in during my lunch break. Play that audio file one more time.
I like to get a workout in during my lunch break.
Yeah, I really like that during my lunch break. I think that sounds really good. I would just work on, I like to get a workout in. You could also lower your pitch on in. But the big thing there is just lowering your pitches. I like to get a I like to get a workout in. I like to get a workout in. I like to get a workout in. Just that sort of pitch movement is going to make that sound much, much, much more natural and more dynamic. All right. Thanks to Marcos for sending that file. We appreciate you as always, sir. Thank you. All right. We are paging Hagasha. Have they sent us an audio file? They have not. Oh, no. I'm going to give this another minute because that was actually our last. Guys, that was some sad news. That was our last file. I told myself I wouldn't cry today. It's the last file. Paging Hagasha to send us a pronunciation file in a moment. If you guys have a quick question about English, American English, question about life, question about relationships, we've helped people with those too. Or we've hurt people with those. I don't know how people have done with our relationship advice. I don't know how they've done. But we've handled all sorts of things. And like I said, if you're interested in American English pronunciation, but you want a little bit more practice and things like that, I encourage you to go to fluentamerican.com. We have video courses. We have our Mission English program. We have one-on-one classes and things like that. All of those things you can find at fluentamerican.com. One last time for Hagasha. I see there is a random animal in my Google Doc. I have an anonymous cormorant in the chat. In the dialogue, and also an anonymous camel. These are the animals that are gracing us in the Google document. The cormorant or whatever it's called just left. Emmanuel asks us, no singer files. No, not today, but I do encourage you. I don't know if you saw last week's. I would encourage you to check out last week's. We were graced not once, but twice by a man going by the name of Tyrone, if I remember right. All right, I have not heard anything from Hagasha. I'm sorry. If we don't get you this week, we can definitely get you next week. Once more, guys, my name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. You've been watching the Schwa Mill, where every single Saturday at this time, usually a little earlier, we help you craft your accent sound more natural in American English. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. Hopefully tomorrow I'm working on a video that I hope to have out. And yeah, if I don't get it out tomorrow, then at least hopefully by Monday. Thank you guys so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it. Look, I know that when it comes to American English pronunciation, there are thousands of resources out there that you could turn to. All of our resources are very small. So the fact that you found us is super impressive. And the fact you stayed with us is super endearing. It means a lot. Okay. Emmanuel did watch the previous stream. Thanks for checking that out. Hope you enjoyed it. All right, guys. I will catch you next week in the Schwa Mill. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day. Have a good night. Good afternoon. And I will see you all later.